Hello everyone, my name is Jimmy and welcome to The Last Lap. In today's video we're going to be breaking down the Coca-Cola 600, the longest NASCAR race of the year. But before we hop into it, I just want to remind you guys to hit that like button and subscribe button. We produce NASCAR content on this channel, so if you love it, we are the perfect place for you. So go ahead and consider hitting that subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it if you did so. And without further ado, I always have to introduce my friend and co-host Matthew joining me on the show. And before we start talking racing, I just want to always give a huge shout out to our military. If they have served in the military or if they're serving right now, anybody who's given their life up for this country, I just want to say thank you so much for doing that. I'm a little bit biased when I say this, but I do think NASCAR is one of the most patriotic sports. I believe that we honor our military the best with the paint schemes, the names of the fallen heroes on the race cars. They bring their families out to the racetrack. And like the pre-race stuff, they had like a tank and like helicopters and all kinds of crazy stuff at the track. So I just want to say thank you for that before we hop into this episode. But Matthew, how are you feeling post Coca-Cola 600? We're recording this like 36 hours after the race, and I still don't really know. I can't comprehend everything that happened. So how do you feel post the Coca-Cola 600?
Well, I have no idea what we just saw. I mean, that was crazy compared to the absolute disaster we had last week, and it feels great to have something just a race that's just so memorable now, and I think it will continue to be memorable for the years to come.
Yeah, it was a crazy race, one of the best Coke 600s in my opinion that I've ever seen. So we're gonna hop straight into the race recap. I'm gonna try to get through this as little time as we can so we can actually talk about it and break it down. So I actually kind of want to start this off in stage four because this is like stage four was absolutely crazy. In case you guys don't know, since the Coca-Cola 600 is 400 laps and 600 miles, NASCAR decides to make it four stages every year instead of three compared to a normal race. But anyways, in stage four, arguably one of the scariest crashes I've seen in quite a while happened. So Daniel Suarez ended up getting loose off of turn four, spins right in front of the field. Chris Buescher slides into him and hits him, and then his car slides and starts going down the turf on the front stretch, and the tire gets caught up under the car, and it pops the car up in the air, and the car starts flipping down the front stretch at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Like the car flipped 4 or 5 times, and then it ended up landing on its roof. One of the most bizarre crashes I've ever seen. Thankfully, Chris Buescher put the window net down. Technically, it was up, but he lowered the window net when the car landed on its roof. Thankfully, NASCAR safety officials took their time. They were talking to him, making sure he was okay, and they had to flip the car over. And this was the first time they had to do that with this next-gen car. They had to flip it over on its all four wheels again. So I saw some people, complaining that it took NASCAR and the officials too long to do it. But in my opinion, if the driver's safe, you can take not all the time you need, but you can take your time and make sure you don't damage the car, you don't hurt the driver anymore or anything like that. Sure, it'd be nice to do it faster, but since Chris Buescher was okay, I'm okay that it took a little bit longer than needed. If somebody was hurt, then yeah, obviously you'd want to get the driver out of there as fast as possible. But anyways, that was a very bizarre wreck in stage four there. And I'm going to get to Kyle Larson's crazy day in a little bit. But he ended up taking the lead from Ross Chastain on that restart. And he would pull away from the field by a little bit. And Chase Briscoe ended up passing Chastain for second. And he was slowly closing in on Kyle Larson. And then with about, I'd say 20-25 laps left in this race, it was a great battle between these two drivers going for the lead, going for the win in the Coca-Cola 600. Briscoe would run right below Larson and stick his nose out and try to pass him, but Larson would rip around the high side and get a run off the corner. Briscoe almost cleared Larson at one point, and Larson just zoomed right back by him on the outside lane. It was a really good battle. I have to say that might be the best racing I've seen all year this year. With like 2 or 3 laps to go, Chase Briscoe kind of sent it down into turn one a little bit too aggressive again, and he spinning out, and that brought out a caution, which led to overtime. And as you guys already know, Chase Briscoe did this at Bristol Dirt, and it didn't work. So he's 0 for 2 on, dive bomb, slide job type moves. So I think he needs to work on that just a little bit. But you got to give him props for going for the win. He already has that win at Phoenix, so he's in the playoffs. So he can do pretty much whatever he wants when it comes to late race situations. So the first overtime restart, it was Kyle Larson, Ross Chastain, Joey Logano, and Ricky Stenhouse, the first 4 drivers, which are all very aggressive drivers. So I was expecting, some crazy things to happen, but not what actually happened. So Austin Dillon, he had 4 tires on the restart, whereas the people in front of him had 2, and he had a huge run down the back straightaway, made it 3-4 wide, whatever, and they came off turn 4 coming to the white flag, and he tries to slide up in front of Larson. They make contact. That sparks a huge wreck that includes Austin Dillon, Kyle Larson, Ross Chastain, Joey Logano, Cole Custer, maybe a few more than that, but they all wreck coming to the white flag. And it was 4 wide off of turn 4 coming to the white flag on an overtime restart. That still blows my mind how crazy that restart was. Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, and Kevin Harvick somehow squeezed through that wreck. I have no idea how. They showed onboard cameras for each of those drivers, and I don't know how they made it through that wreck. It was crazy. But that's up a second overtime restart, which had Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain on the front row, who had damage, pretty significant damage, I might add, from that wreck. Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick were behind them. The restart went back green. Kyle Busch made quick do of Ross Chastain, and him and his teammate Denny Hamlin battled it out for the win. Going into turn 1 on the final lap, Denny Hamlin kind of slid Kyle Busch up a little bit up the track, kind of like how Daniel Suarez did to Kyle Busch earlier in the race, and Kyle Busch spun out from it. So maybe Kyle learned his lesson there a little bit and just backed out of the throttle because he didn't want to spin out again. But Denny Hamlin would go on to win the Coca-Cola 600. So now I'm going to go a little bit backwards. Like I just said, Suarez and Kyle Busch, they had an incident earlier in the race. Chase Elliott won the first stage. Unfortunately, that's all we would see from Chase Elliott. Big sad, but oh well. In stage 2, he ended up spinning. He tried to pull a slide job and hit the wall a little bit, and then that broke the toe link, which is at least the second one this season. I don't know how Chase Elliott can break a toe link from gently hitting the wall, but Larson and Blaney slammed the wall early in the race and they don't break it. I don't know. I guess Chase Elliott's team just makes bad toe links or something. But that ended up happening. And then there was a big crash right after that involving Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin, who would come back to win the race from that, William Byron, Beck Keselowski, Kurt Busch, and several others. So really quickly, I just want to touch on this a little bit. So Chase and Bubba, they both had minimal damage for their prospective accidents. And each of them were DNF'd because they didn't meet the damaged vehicle policy time clock thing. And I think Bubba's case is even worse than Chase's because I think, he barely had any damage at all, but because he was involved in the caution, he was put on the damaged vehicle policy or something. And I don't know, I just feel like NASCAR needs to adjust that a little bit. They need to give, first of all, it should be longer than 6 or 7 minutes, I think. And then I think they should give the drivers a longer opportunity to maintain minimum speed instead of 2 or 3 green flag laps, because Bubba was just hanging in the back trying to avoid a wreck and saving his tires and all that, and then he went to the garage. They DNF'd him for it. But I just feel like NASCAR needs to adjust that a little bit, especially with this next gen race car where it's so easy to repair these cars. You get in a big wreck and there's hardly any debris coming off the race car for it. So I feel like NASCAR should adjust that with the next gen car because they're so durable, at least on the outside, not the inside. But I feel like NASCAR should adjust that a little bit. But Daniel Suarez would end up winning stage 2, and this is where Trackhouse started to take over. Daniel Suarez and Ross Chastain were up front. Chastain would win stage 3 as well. And I already went over everything that happened in stage 4, but Denny Hamlin did end up getting the win. This was the longest Coca-Cola 600 ever. It was 5 hours and 13 minutes or something like that. Crazy long race. And, the red flag in there didn't help either with Chris Buescher flipping. This race had everything. It had crashes, it had tire strategy, it had a car flipping down the front stretch, it had great racing, it had just about everything you could ask for a Coca-Cola 600. A crown jewel race, the closing race on Memorial Day Sunday. You had the Monaco race earlier in the day, you had the Indy 500, and now the Coke 600 at the end of the day. So when you have that final race of the day, it better deliver, and I'm darn sure that this race delivered. It was a great race. So let me go over the top 10 real quick. I'm going to tell you guys what happened to each of these drivers in the top 10. So Denny Hamlin won the race after being involved in that big crash in stage 2. Kyle Busch, he had a heck of a day too, your driver, Matthew. He spun out early, went a lap down, had a pit penalty, and he had an issue near the end of stage 3, and he had to pit under green. And I'm pretty sure he lost a lap there too. And he rallies back and finishes second. So great rally, great comeback for Kyle Busch right there. Kevin Harvick, he got involved in some type of incident, I'm sure, throughout the day. I think Ty Dillon was like the only driver who didn't get involved in an accident today or something like that. Chase Briscoe came back to finish 4th somehow after spinning out, battling Larson for the lead really late in the race. Christopher Bell had a bunch of issues. He finished 5th. He pitted near the end of stage 3 under green, kind of like Kyle Busch did, and then he hit the wall in the final stage, and that didn't bring out a caution. So Christopher Bell came back to finish 5th. Tyler Reddick, he had a flat tire at the start of stage 4. He rallied back to finish 6th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I think this is his 3rd or 4th straight top 10 finish, so huge props to Ricky Stenhouse Jr., sorry about that. Huge props to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and that team for being consistent for the past few weeks. Michael McDowell finished 8th. Kyle Larson 9th. I'll come back to that in a second. And Alex Bowman rounds out the top 10. So Kyle Larson, he had to start at the rear of the field after repairing his car after practice, damage in practice. He had 2 pit road penalties. He spun out. His car literally caught on fire. Like the fuel cell, it caught on fire. A tire got knocked out of his hand by a pit crew member. Or a tire got knocked out of a pit crew member's hand by Eric Almirola's car. And then Cliff Daniels gave like one of the most inspirational speeches I've ever heard in a NASCAR race. Like, I need this guy to be my personal cheerleader because he was pumping up Kyle Larson, pumping up his crew like nothing I've ever seen before. It was great. I loved it. So Cliff Daniels, if you want to be like my personal life coach or something, you're more than welcome to do that. And then Kyle Larson gets to the lead, and then obviously him and Chase Briscoe are battling. Briscoe spins out, and then he gets involved in that accident with Austin Dillon. So crazy race for Kyle Larson. He still finishes 9th somehow. So huge props to Kyle Larson and that 5 team for rallying back after several issues throughout the day to get a top 10. But I think that's everything from this race. There are some other incidents in there as well. There were how many cautions were there? 18. Yeah, there were 18 cautions as well, which also made this the longest Coca-Cola 600 ever. So I think that's, the most important stuff that we talked about. There are several more things that I can't get to, but Matthew, go ahead and tell the viewers your thoughts about this Coca-Cola 600 and break down as much of this race as you can, as much as time allows us to. So go ahead and tell the fans what you think.
Well, I feel like if we explained everything that happened in this race, I think it would take like 5 hours to explain everything because a lot happened this race. And, man, it had everything you could think of in this race. And this Coca-Cola 600, I think that's the best one I have seen personally. I started watching when the Gen 4 cars were still racing. I'm sure there's probably other Coca-Cola 600s back then that were probably better than this, but from what I've seen over the years, I think this was the best 600 that I have seen personally. I mean, this race was a guessing game, especially who was going to win, because at a moment we thought Kyle Busch was going to win, we thought Chase Hill was going to win, we thought Ross Chastain was going to win, Daniel Suarez was going to win. I mean, we didn't know who was going to win because no one was really like that dominant, so that made things interesting. The tire strategy also made it interesting, which is actually kind of surprising. Despite having 4 stages, I didn't think we'd have a lot of strategy, but we ended up having a lot of strategy because there were so many cautions, so that helped. I mean, this race was just, man. There were a bunch of spins, a bunch of flat tires, big crashes. I did guess before that we were going to get 20 cautions in this race, probably because of flat tires, but I was short of two. There were 18, so I was short of two. And not all of them were flat tires. There were a couple of them that they were, but at least not all of them were flat tires like Kansas. Like, there were a bunch of spins, there were a bunch of big wrecks. Chris Buescher doing the Ricky Bobby impression. Yep, I'm flying over there. This is not good. At the same track too, which is a coincidence. Um, but Denny Hamlin was there at the right time. He was basically kind of quiet. Like, he was up there, but he wasn't really like leading a lot like Chastain was or Elliott was. He did get caught up in one of those big wrecks, but he was able to rebound up there and get the win. So that was impressive for Hamlin. All he needs is that championship, but that's doubtful. We all know him at this point. Um, but at least he has 3 Daytona 500s and a Coke 600 win, so I guess that helps on his resume a little bit. Um, Man, I really wish Kyle did win that one because that was the last time, as far as I know, he's going to race the red, white, blue M&M's car, um, which is always my favorite scheme of the year because the meaning behind that scheme with the red, white, and blue with the fallen soldier's name on the windshield. Um, Man, I that stung a little bit, but I can't be mad at it because Hamlin did race him clean, which I appreciated. He didn't bump it out of the way like Logano did at Darlington. He didn't, basically dive bombed in there and took both of them out like Chase Briscoe did at Bristol Dirt. So I gotta respect that one. Man, there was just some amazing racing. Both the low line and the high line worked. While the high line was mostly the best lane to be in, you can make drivers were able to make that low line work as well. Like Chase Briscoe was doing that in the closing laps, not on all the way in the bottom, but at least lower than not all the way up to the wall like Larson was, and he was making that work. Which that was cool. Multiple lanes. That's always the best thing to have at a racetrack in Texas. Um, Man, this race was awesome, and I mean, after the disaster race we had last weekend, it felt great we were able to come to another mile and a half and show, hey, these cars are great a mile and a half. It's just Texas. That sucks. So that was just great. But yeah, a lot happened, and yeah, that was a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, it was a crazy race in general. Like you said, like Denny Hamlin and most of the Toyotas in general weren't really leading laps at the front of the field besides Kyle Busch early on in stage one. Yeah, they just kind of did their thing. They stayed out of trouble for the most part and hung around when it mattered most, and they ended up getting a win for the Toyotas. So, yeah, I mean, Kyle Busch looked good early in this race. Chase Elliott looked good in this race. Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez. I'd say those were, I guess, the 4 best cars. Those were the 4 best cars, but like everybody else, they just kind of survived and hung around to the end. To be honest with you, I don't know how Ty Dillon didn't win this race because he was like the only driver who didn't have an issue today. But I guess it's because all the cautions and the free pass and the wave around and all that crazy stuff that all these drivers were able to rally back. It's unbelievable how these drivers had so many issues and could still manage to get top 5s and top 10s out of their days. But I guess let's go ahead and rate this race. Or actually, I want to ask you this question first, very quickly. So Denny Hamlin won the Coke 600, which now he's won all the crown jewels that are on the schedule. But can we officially say that he's done the sweep? Because the Brickyard 400 used to be a crown jewel, but now that it's on the road course, it's not really a crown jewel anymore. So Matthew, do you believe Denny Hamlin, do you believe he's completed the sweep, or do you think that not so much just because the Brickyard isn't on the schedule anymore?
Well, I think he's completed a sweep. I mean, he just has to win the championship, which has proven to be really hard for him. So, I mean, that's up to him and his pit crew not to choke on that one important race. I don't really count the Brickyard as a crown jewel anymore because that race is not I mean, I'm glad they're on the road course now because I cannot stand the oval races, especially the last couple of years of being that track. I'm like, nope, we gotta we gotta do something different because this track is not working. I mean, I could literally take a nap during those races and not miss a thing. That's how those races always go, except for 2017, because that race was unpredictable there. But other than that, I don't count the Brickyard as a crown jewel anymore. But as back to the question, yeah, I think Hamlin has completed the sweep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on the same page. Like, I think, you know, he's won at the 3 crown jewels that are still on the schedule. So I think he's completed the sweep. I still think they should have the Indianapolis Oval and the road course. We can agree to disagree on that, but I think they should bring the
Man, you
Oval
just
back
want to
because
nap in.
with this next gen car, I believe it would be a good race at the Oval. That's my opinion. But
Nah.
I mean, I think they should have both the road course and the Oval, like IndyCar
Nope.
does. They do the Indy 500 now, and then they do the road course in like August, the weekend that NASCAR does the road course. So I think they should do
I
both.
think we
That's
can
my
save
opinion.
this conversation for when the Indy race week comes.
I don't even know if we'll be able to do that because I'll be in Indy for that race actually. But anyways, we can go ahead and rate this race. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. I mean, it had everything that you needed. Like I said earlier, crashes, good racing, a car flipping, which the driver's okay, thankfully. Tire strategy, pit strategy, all the above. Tires weren't that much of an issue. We had 1 or 2 or 3 flat tires, so not the end of the world there. But yeah, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Perfect race, perfect way to end the Sunday of Memorial Day weekend. Great closeout to the week. But yeah, Matthew, what are you going to go ahead and rate the race?
10 out of 10. I mean, there's no hesitation on that one. I think we said all we said about it, and yeah, this race was awesome.
This might be the first time we've both given a race a 10 out of 10 this year. Maybe. I don't remember.
I think we've done 10 out of 10 one or two times. Maybe it was
Bristol
Coda.
Dirt, maybe. Or Coda. Bristol Dirt or Coda. Yeah, those are both really good races this year, too. But a rare occurrence that you see both of us give a 10 out of 10 for a race, so you know it was a good one. Also, let's hop into our fantasy points very quickly. I think I got like 4 of the top 5 finishers somehow. I don't even know. I had Hamlin, Busch, Harvick, and Bell, and they somehow finished in the top 5, so I mean, I'm not complaining about that at all. But you ended up getting 162 points for the race. I ended up getting 194 points for the race. So now that puts you at 2,491 points, and I am at 2,528. So like a little bit over 30-point gap, but this is an unpredictable season, so a long way to go. I got the win this week, but you never know. We're going to a new track next week, too. We're going to Gateway next week, so a lot of crazy stuff probably going to happen there. But let's go ahead and wrap the video up. Matthew, do you have any other closing thoughts?
Well, we're not going to just one new track this week. We're going to 2 new tracks. Don't forget, Xfinity is going to be at Portland this weekend, all the way up in Oregon, which is up northwest. And I think this is the first time we've had a national series up in that high in the northwest in a long time. I think they raced at Portland before, but that was like in the 90s, I think, or the early 2000s. So I cannot wait to see how that race goes. And I cannot wait to see how Gateway goes, because this is literally just a bridge away from downtown St. Louis. So I know it's going to be an amazing weekend there. It's going to be really unpredictable because it feels like a flat version of Darlington, basically. So well, I don't think I'll drive like Darlington, of course, but I think this is going to be an interesting race to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be a great weekend of racing coming up. We should get our preview and predictions video out for that before all of the action in Portland and in St. Louis. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. We hope you all enjoyed it. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Stay tuned to our other social media accounts so you guys can stay updated on when we upload our videos. But until next time, we will see you guys in our next video.